Anyway, let's take another subject. Now, we'll come back to Nigeria. The Oyo State Governor, Seyi Makinde, expressed how the former Oyo State Governor shared money meant for contract with others, leaving only 10% for the execution of the project. Makinde, in his 100 days in office chat on Twitter, did not mention the name of the governor, but it was clear that he was apparently referring to the immediate past governor of Oyo State, Abiola Ajimobi. According to Makinde, he declared his assets because he wanted to be held accountable, saying that what he met on ground was a situation whereby a project for which money was allocated got only about 10% of the total funds for execution. Makinde also said that during electioneering, he had promised that he would scrap CCTV cameras in the state, but that after getting into government, he realized that scrapping it would be a disservice to the people of Oyo State since the money had already been spent. Rather, the government will enhance it so it can be useful to combat criminality. He added that good governance transcends politics, saying that any contractor that had been paid for any project will have to finish the work. Now, this statement made by Seyi Makinde, the governor of Oyo State, was quite shocking. In fact, he provided a breakdown that what he found is that if any contract was awarded, the governor would take 50% upfront of the cost of the contract. 30% will go to the commissioner or the state official in charge of the contract. 10% will go to the wife of the governor. Of the governor.
Of the 30%?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. 10% of the 30% will go to the wife. The contractor himself will take 10% upfront, and then only 10% of the funds released will go to the project. And what he then found was a situation whereby so many projects uncompleted, abandoned, and money had been taken and pocketed. I think that this is really scandalous. Enough is enough. You will say, I keep coming to you because I miss you. Yes.
But I think, it's interesting that we ended up on sort of the negative side of social media in misinforming. I think for me, it's a very interesting way of a state governor using social media. Because I think beyond anything he's probably said publicly or in a sitting, it's his tweets that then became news. And I think it's really very fascinating around what is, for me, as I look at it, I think he set an extremely high bar for himself. Because by stating these facts within your 100 days, beyond the content, but in a sense, stating very boldly that I plan to be accountable, I plan to say things as I see them, and I plan to rule or govern transparently. I think for me, that's really the important lesson. Now, the flip side of then is sort of the context of that, spoken about CCTV and some other stuff. One of the interesting things he said is people want the secretariat painted. And I said, look, the furniture inside is crap. So why should I spend money to make it look good from the outside when people don't have chair and internal is rubbish? So I think for me, that type of thinking speaks to what a good leader should do. And I hope he continues with it. And it will also be very interesting how the Ajimobis respond.
Well, for me, because I've been in government,
I wanted you to, after commenting on that, to see it in the context of 100 days in office.
Yes.
As we speak, 19 state governors have not even appointed commissioners at all. Okay. And many of them, are still trying to study the environment 100 days after getting into office.
I'll come to that second one first. But like I said, I thought you'd even come to me first because I have been in government and I have been through all this. Extremely shocking and surprising what she said, but I doffed my hat out to him. And if you asked me, I'll say to you, this is a result of possibly a leader that is not being held accountable to some higher interest. In other words, maybe this guy has no godfather. Maybe nobody was responsible for putting him there. And this begins to tell you the problems we have in Nigeria. Once our leaders are unshackled, anybody can do well. So you see what has come out of Oyo State shows that this guy got to where he went to, where he got to by the grace of God and maybe through his own best efforts with whoever his supporters are. But then, be that as it may, I find it shocking that a man as cosmopolitan as Ajimobi will be the one, at the receiving end of this kind of thing. But if that is what he saw, then that is what he saw. But like I said, I have been in government and nothing like that ever occurred in anywhere I served, either in the federal or in the state governments I served, because the issues we usually had was that the funds available were not even enough to do what you had to do. So how dare you start pillaging it and giving XYZ to this and to that? You understand? And that brings me to your final question, so I can, let other people have their time. I think what is going on, if you look at the Constitution, it says that states have to be run by commissioners. No doubt, there's a provision for that. But it did not say the time limit which governors have to appoint their commissioners.
That was how one governor spent more than 1 year.
Fantastic. I'm just telling you about
without commissioners.
I'm talking to you
He
about.
said he was saving money.
God bless you. I'm coming. So that's the point I'm making. So have you asked yourself in your mind, what is behind this idea of most governors running their states with consultants and, as it were, because that's what it is. Yeah. Maybe we might need to revisit our constitution. Who knows? I was a commissioner, and because I wouldn't be happy for this, because if this happened when I was a commissioner, I would not have had the opportunity of being a commissioner. That's the truth. And there were people there who I'm sure invested either in their time, in their intellect, or even in their money, and expecting, to be part of the government. But they cannot. But the bottom line, like Yemi chipped in now, is that most states, because this is not when we were in government 5-6 years ago, most states don't even have money to pay recurrent expenditure. Because don't forget, once you come in with a cabinet, your expenditure just goes over the roof. Because every commissioner needs his car, needs his house, needs money for recurrent needs, and all that. So these are the issues we have to keep balancing and looking at. But basically, I think...
Generally, if you look around the country, do you get a sense of momentum that these governors, either the ones doing second time or the ones who are just doing their first times,
yes,
understand the urgency of now?
No, I think
in terms
so.
Of their
I think so. And you see, there are a few bright spots that are beginning to come out. And it's not about whether they have commissioners or not. For instance, my state, Delta, you might accuse me of being biased because it's my state, but I think governance has taken off there from day one. We have our commissioners in place, and the gentleman there is going on with his work. My friend in Ogun State, I dare say, he hasn't appointed commissioners, but we can see what he's doing.
No, just stay with data. Don't talk about Ogun State.
No, I would.
Prof, I will come to you after the break. Okay. So we'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation. Stay tuned. Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News Channel. I still have with me in the studio here, CHIKE, former Information Commissioner in Delta State, Professor Bola Akintenrewa, former Director General of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs and Director General of the Bolitag Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies. And of course, Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director. Enough is enough. Well, but before we went on break, we talked about the indications of corruption that was, in the news from Oyo State, pointed out, of course, by the incumbent governor, Seyi Makinde. And then we move from there to a commentary on the last 100 days since the inauguration of a new dispensation. But, Prof, I wanted you to comment on these two issues also.
Thank you.
Yes.
Let me begin with CHIKE. CHIKE said when he was commissioner, he didn't have an idea, notion about this type of happening in Oyo State.
Yeah,
I think
it wasn't happening in Delta.
Yes, I think simply you did not know. You are far away from those who are doing so. It's as simple as that. Secondly, on July 30, 2019, I was inaugurated as a coordinator for Lagos State, National Anti-Corruption Volunteer Corps. Mm-hmm. So I am the coordinator for Lagos State in terms of fighting corruption. Mm-hmm. So when I read things like this, I have always raised the issue that how can a government that is internally corrupt fight corruption externally? Yep. It is not possible. Makinde has given us a concrete case. And we have many cases like this. It is not possible for an individual who is dishonest with himself to be honest to another person. It's not possible. So, the way we are discussing this thing, we are only discussing it on a lighter mode. It's a more serious, more complex problem. So, if the war against indiscipline, if the war against corruption is to have any meaningful, any constructive meaning at all, then we must first of all direct the torchlight into, those who are in power. If Makinde can come into the open, we are told that he didn't mention Ajimobi, but that deductively, he was certainly referring to his predecessor. The question to ask, the question to investigate is, for God's sake, 50% to governor, 30% to, and 10%, and so on and so forth. Now, the computations, to me, simply means that 10% to have been the amount required for that project.
Yes.
Quite correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Well, let's leave the matter. Let's hope that the governor will take it up and ensure that proper investigations are carried out because, it's not enough to just raise an allegation.
Indeed.
Because reputation of other persons is involved. So we hope that this is not just politics that he's playing and that he can back up his allegations with facts and figures. Yep. Now, let's go to Hong Kong. Pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong are appealing to President Donald Trump for help as they march near the U.S. consulate in the city. Some are carrying banners reading, President Trump, please save Hong Kong and make Hong Kong great again. Sunday's crowd waved U.S. flags and chanted pleas for the U.S. to liberate Hong Kong from China. The protest, now in its 14th straight week, have continued despite Hong Kong leadership's finally meeting one of the protesters' key demands, the withdrawal of the controversial extradition bill that sparked months of anti-government protests. China has consistently warned other countries not to interfere. It says the situation in Hong Kong, a former British colony, handed back to China in 1997, is purely its own internal affair. Well, Prof, I better let you deal with this. Carrie Lam has withdrawn the bill finally, but there are still 4 other demands. The people are asking for investigation. They are saying that they do not accept the characterization of the protests as riots. They are asking for universal suffrage. They are asking for independent investigation. They are also asking for the release of persons who have been arrested by the government in Hong Kong. But what's the way out of this?
The way out of it is to accept the principle of Chinese sovereignty over Hong Kong. Anything short of that cannot bring about any enduring, solution to the problem. You see, the protests, as they are today, the demands of the Hong Kongers, as are today, only, to me, create new problems for the United States. It gives the impression that the Americans are sustaining, they are encouraging the protests. And that will have implications for the direct relationship between the Chinese and the Americans, as they are. Now, if they are asking the United States to come and save Hong Kong, in what capacity should the Americans come in there? What capacity? So, it will only harden the relationship between China and the United States. Secondly, all they are asking for sovereignty. That raises the issue of self-determination.
And that's why mainland China refers to them as terrorists.
Precisely. So when you look at this, I think that the coinage of their posters there make Hong Kong great again, which is a little bit different from the campaign terminology of Donald Trump. You know, Donald Trump started with the conception of America first. He moved from America first to make America great. Now, currently, he's now saying, keep America great. In other words, he's implying that America is already great now. Let us keep that greatness. Now, the Hong Kongers are saying, make Hong Kong great. Now. Again. But Hong Kong was never great at any point in time. You cannot put the word again there. Why?
Hong Kong. I see you are insisting on the one country, two systems framework.
Precisely.
And the inviolability of it.
Of that
as you
particular principle.
Yes, CHIKE, what do you think?
Look, for me, like I always do, I let Prof give us the international relations to everything. I'm asking a question here. 14 weeks, for the reasons you have adduced, there has been those protests in the streets of China. Of Hong Kong. And it's now, like you said, one by one, I'm sure they are going to start acceding to those issues. How come in Nigeria, when we have issues, we can't do anything like that? It takes Showore. No, hold on. I'm going somewhere. It takes Showore, one man, to say, hey, no, we have these issues, and he's put away. You understand? So what I'm trying to say is that we are not ready. You see, protests, it's not violence. It's a part of democracy. It's the people showing, and that is what we are saying, in Hong Kong, that they are not happy with some things that are going on in their country. And it is a legitimate right. It should not be denied the people. But you see, in our own case in Nigeria, all I'm saying is that, as they say, I don't think we've gotten where there's any issue with us. Because when we have a problem, we will come out and say we have a problem. We don't need a Showore to come out and tell us if there is a problem. Nigerians will come out and say they have a problem.
About people power.
Yes.
You have a point about people power.
But I think the way that Hong Kongers can come out peacefully and protest, as my friends would say, because they're too much bellyful. No, seriously, but you can't detach economic sort of sufficiency with the ability to continue this 14 weeks on.
We've got to go, but as I pointed out, we've seen a demonstration of people power, the resolve of the people.
In an economic context.
And their determination to continue with the protest. Sooner or later, their demands will have to be addressed. You've been watching ThisDayLive, the Sunday talk show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. From my entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching.